Mine is not the only channel that was hit. My colleague Michael Knowles was hit. The force that is behind these globally sanctioned and some group are in control of corporations and essentially just send down a narrative every couple of years, and everyone gets in lockstep agreeing and acquiescing to a really big lie. Obviously in 2020 that was Black Lives Matter. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing the fist flag. You couldn't be a white person in America and not be told that you need to feel guilty for being white, literally for the way that you are born. You have somehow committed a crime. We saw the black squares all across Instagram, and quite literally big tech promoted this. Twitter made it a top trend. People were encouraged to donate, not knowing where that cash would go. And essentially, if you were a celebrity and you didn't put a black square, or you were just a person and you failed to put a black square, you were punished, you were maimed, you were caricatured in the media. People implied that you were obviously racist. And if you were a black person during that time who disagreed with the BLM narrative, worst of all, I mean, the amount of names that I was called, the amount of videos that are ironically on YouTube of people referring to me as an Uncle Tom, or a lot of racial slurs that are probably not even allowed to be said on Instagram. But during that period, they made special policies where you could say horrific things to Black conservatives or Black people that didn't agree with the BLM narrative. And written into their policies were sort of these, I call them like George Floyd policies, where if you didn't agree with the BLM narrative, they could take down your account. They essentially, you weren't a person that was allowed to exist on the internet unless you agreed to this globally sanctioned lie. We fast forward some years. Obviously, those of us who dug our feet in the sand essentially were vindicated when the corporation fell apart. I think they're now filing for bankruptcy. When Patrisse Cullors was proven to be a liar, when we saw how much of that money, as I proved in my documentary, was going to transgender groups, extremely strange, and how little to none of it was going towards Black Americans. Obviously, it was a gigantic hustle, and yet nobody is being held responsible for it. Lives were harmed. People had their lives ruined for a globally sanctioned lie. People were accused of racism. People had their businesses ruined for a globally sanctioned lie. And nobody is in trouble for it, least of all big tech, as they quietly update their policies. And suddenly you're allowed to talk about BLM and you're allowed to say things that are true about the people that fell for that lie. Then we very quickly moved in almost at the same time into the COVID narrative. And I don't think any of us have ever seen a more insane push to control speech. It's interesting because Mark Zuckerberg just himself has admitted that Facebook and Instagram got a little crazy on the COVID stuff. And he says now we don't really know what to do because Big Pharma got it so wrong. But at that point in time, Big Pharma was in control of your speech, my speech. You couldn't even type out the word vaccine on Instagram. You couldn't type it out without having it somehow blocked. I think they still have in place some policies where you can't talk about COVID. And at that time, people were sharing their experiences. They were sharing their reactions. One of the biggest lies that was essentially vindicated was when all of the young women were coming forward saying, hey, I listened to you guys. I got the shot. I got the vaccine shot that you guys have been pushing, and I had a reaction to it. Women that were coming forth and saying it impacted their menstruation, and they were having their accounts censored and shut down. They were being called liars in the media. Essentially, doctors were saying it was a implausibility, unlikely that it was impacting menstruation. Fast forward a few months and they just changed their mind and were like, okay, it is impacting menstruation. And suddenly you were allowed to say it, but at first you had to wait for Big Pharma to admit it. And we're same exact circumstance when they at first said, get your vaccine. It will 100% protect you. You will not get COVID if you get this vaccine. And any person that got the vaccine and said, hey, I got it, and I actually did get COVID, was called a liar. They were having their accounts taken down for COVID misinformation. Lo and behold, fast forward a couple of months later, and they were like, oh, yeah, oopsies. No, we know we told you all to rush to get it and that it would 100% protect you, but we lied. And it's really interesting that it just takes time to vindicate these global lies. Well, the lie that is agreed upon right now on big tech, and again, we don't know who is controlling this narrative, but we do know that this is the most insidious narrative that I think they have ever promoted, obviously, right now, in which they are fighting tooth and nail to protect as they lie to people about the truth, is gender ideology. We are seeing gender ideology as the number one thing that they're trying to perpetuate. And why is it the most insidious of all of them? It's because they are targeting children. That's why in the other two circumstances, parents could make a decision and say, you know what, I don't want this for my child. But in this circumstance, they can't because it's everywhere. And, YouTube is using its platform, YouTube Kids, to push this gender ideology. They are actually, and quite ironically, ignoring scientific evidence, ignoring the scientific papers that are coming out of Europe that are saying, hey, listen, we really don't think that children should be given these things. They are ignoring transgendered people that are talking about procedures that they have. And that is what I was showing on my show. I was showcasing actual transgendered people that were saying, I made a terrible mistake, I did this. And YouTube is possessed with protecting this narrative. They essentially are saying to the Daily Wire, you are just not allowed to talk about transgenderism at all, which is a very scary thing, that we are living in a society where you are punished for speaking the truth. Forget free speech. Michael Knowles asked a very important question when we did a Twitter Spaces the other week. He said, forget free speech. Are we allowed to say true things? Are you allowed to say, Candace Owens is a Black woman? Well, the answer on YouTube is no. It depends on how I feel. So if I wake up one day and I say, actually, I feel today like a Hispanic man, and you then do a video and you say, Candace is a black female, they punish you. They are protecting feelings, and worse than that, they're pretending that it's because they care about the emotionality of these individuals, when in fact, obviously what they're doing is great and tremendous harm to these individuals. So our options are what? To become subjugated by YouTube policies, and YouTube essentially wants me to look at a grown man and to say that they are a woman, to look at a grown woman and to say that they are a man. In lockstep, obviously, is Hollywood. We are seeing Hollywood as putting transgendered individuals on the cover of magazines, just like they went through the spell of putting people that were in BLM, Patrisse Cullors, and people of those ilk on the cover of magazines, just like they were in a spell of putting people like Dr. Fauci and those individuals as man and woman of the year. They do this. They essentially try to brainwash the entire population to believe something that is a lie by purporting that individuals are heroes, and those individuals are always frauds. You may have just seen this, obviously, overseas, Glamour UK. They ran a quote unquote pregnant man on the cover. And the thing that is the worst about this, or one aspect that is bad, the worst is that they're targeting children, but one aspect that is also bad is that they want me to pretend that biological females don't exist, that I am the exact same as a man who wakes up and says that he is a woman. And they are begging for my submission, for the Daily Wire to submit to this. Frankly put, and this has always been the case since the very beginning of my career, I'm just not a buck that can be broken. I see this all the time. I know there are people that will agree to the lie, will acquiesce to the lie to protect their careers because they don't want to be chased out of Hollywood, because they don't want to be maimed and caricatured in the media. I'm not one of these individuals. To be honest, I wish I was. It would be easier if I could just agree to a lie temporarily so I could collect some paychecks. I'm not. Instead, I feel additionally fortified against this dangerous ideology. I have young children. I can't imagine having the world get to such an evil place because those of us who knew better didn't have the courage to say something so abundantly obvious as people cannot pick their genders. Unfortunately, that's not to target these individuals. That's not to say that you want people harmed. We have never called for people to be harmed. We are demanding that our children are not harmed by a lie, because children are susceptible to lies, because children are susceptible to manipulation. It becomes incumbent upon the adults to stand up to those types of manipulation. So I wanted to just come out here and tell you guys why my channel is being temporarily banned. We had been under review for about 2 weeks, and they came back and they said basically every time that I talk about transgenderism, which is essentially a policy that says, or an opaque set of policies that suggest that if you correctly identify someone, if you correctly gender someone, YouTube will hit you with a strike, and they have hit my account with 2 strikes for correctly gendering someone. That is the madness of what we are talking about, for correctly stating what somebody's biological sex is. My account is being stricken. So yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys. There will be many more announcements this week. I don't have an ask right now because there isn't really a call to action. It's just I want to talk about it. I want to talk about the truth, and I want to encourage all of you guys to know that there is no check big enough for you to acquiesce to a global lie. If there's anything that you guys do want to do to support, we will keep the show up on Twitter, so you can watch it there, and we'll be releasing episodes on Twitter this week, so you can watch it there, since Elon Musk seems to be open to free speech, or at least to true speech, I think we should say. And also, it would be great that while my channel is locked down, if I got the most subscriptions that I've ever gotten on YouTube, because I think that would really stick it to them. So I've included the link to my YouTube page. If you just hit the button to subscribe to it, I do not know exactly when I'm going to be back on YouTube. I think it's a 1 to 2 week ban. I will get more details on it tomorrow. But yeah, just open to the conversation. We'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And once again, those of us who stand up and tell the truth will be vindicated in the end, because in the end, truth always wins. All right, guys, bye.